Most people believe success belongs to the smartest person in the room. But history tells a different story. The people who last, the people who rise again after failure, the people who stay relevant when everything changes, are not always the most intelligent. They are the ones who know how to learn. Because learning is not about school, it's not about degrees, and it's definitely not about memorizing answers. Learning is about adaptation. Look around you. The world you were prepared for no longer exists. Jobs that once felt secure have vanished. Skills that once guaranteed income are now automated. Entire industries rise and fall within a decade. And yet, some people keep moving forward, no matter how many times the ground shifts beneath them. Why? Because they don't cling to what they know. They invest in their ability to learn what they don't. When money is gone, learning remains. When titles disappear, learning remains. When plans fail, learning remains. The ability to learn is not a skill for a moment. It is a skill for a lifetime. Most people wait for permission to learn. They wait for a teacher, a system, a perfect time. But the people who succeed understand something deeper. Learning is a responsibility. They don't ask, what should I learn? They ask, what does the world need now and how can I grow into it? Learning how to learn means staying curious when others become comfortable. It means asking better questions instead of demanding quick answers. It means being willing to feel uncomfortable because growth lives there. Think about it. Every meaningful change in your life began when you didn't know something. You were confused, uncertain, sometimes afraid, but you moved forward anyway, and in doing so, you expanded. That expansion never stops unless you decide it does. The problem is, many people confuse learning with knowing. They believe once they know something, the work is done. But knowing is static. Learning is alive. The moment you say, I already know this, growth ends. The moment you say, I'm willing to learn, opportunity begins. Learning how to learn means accepting that you will never be finished. And that's not a weakness, that's the advantage. Because the world doesn't reward those who know everything, it rewards those who can figure things out. When technology changes, learners adapt. When markets shift, learners adjust. When failure hits, learners ask, what can this teach me? This is why learning pays you forever. Not because it guarantees success, but because it guarantees resilience. Anyone can win when conditions are perfect. Learners win when conditions are uncertain. And here's the part most people miss. Learning is not about speed. It's about consistency. You don't need to learn everything today. You need to learn something regularly. One idea, one insight, one skill at a time. People who master learning don't rush. They build habits. They read when others scroll. They listen when others talk. They practice when others wait. They understand that small improvements, done daily, compound into transformation, and they are not afraid to start from zero because beginners grow faster than experts who refuse to evolve. Being broke today does not disqualify you from learning. In fact, it might be your greatest advantage. When you have nothing to protect, you are free to grow. You don't need expensive courses to learn. You need discipline, you need humility, and you need curiosity. Curiosity is what pulls you forward when motivation fades. It's what keeps you asking why when others accept that's just how it is. The most dangerous sentence you can say is, this is the way it's always been done. The most powerful sentence you can say is, what if there's a better way? Learning how to learn also means learning how to fail. Because failure is not the opposite of success, it's the classroom. Every mistake contains information. Every setback carries a lesson, but only learners collect it. Others walk away bitter. Learners walk away wiser. And over time, wisdom becomes value. People don't pay you for what you know today, they pay you for your ability to grow into tomorrow. That's why learning is not just a skill, it's a mindset, a choice. A daily commitment to progress, even when progress feels slow. The world will keep changing. That is guaranteed. Your job is not to stop change. Your job is to stay capable within it. When you learn how to learn, fear loses its power because uncertainty no longer threatens you. It challenges you, and challenges are where growth begins. So if you're broke today, don't panic. Invest in learning, not as an escape, but as a foundation. Because money follows value, and value follows growth, and growth belongs to those who never stop learning. That skill, once built, will pay you forever. Ideas change the world, but only when they are shared. Every opportunity you will ever have begins with a conversation, a moment where one human tries to transfer meaning to another. And yet most people treat communication as an afterthought, not as a skill that shapes their future. We are taught what to think, but rarely how to express it. We are taught what to know, but rarely how to make others care. And so, brilliant ideas stay trapped inside silent minds, while average ideas travel far simply because they were communicated well. Communication is not about speaking louder, it is about being understood. When you communicate clearly, people feel safe. When people feel safe, they listen. And when they listen, trust begins to form. Trust is the foundation of every team, every business, every movement, and every opportunity you will ever receive. If people cannot understand you, they cannot support you. If they cannot support you, you will always struggle alone. This is why communication pays you forever, because the ability to turn thoughts into words and words into meaning creates momentum that money cannot buy. Most people think communication is about talking. It's not. It's about connection. And connection begins with listening. When you truly listen, you don't wait to reply. You try to understand. You hear not just words, but emotion. Not just requests, but fears. And when people feel heard, they feel valued. Valued people show up differently. They commit, they contribute, they care. This is how leaders are made, not through authority, but through understanding. The strongest communicators don't dominate conversations. They guide them. They ask questions that invite reflection. They speak in a way that includes, not excludes. They use simple language not to appear smart, but to be clear. Clarity is respect. When you explain your ideas simply, you respect your audience. It's time, attention, and intelligence. Confusion doesn't make you deep, it makes you distant. The people who succeed don't say more, they say what matters. Communication is also how you advocate for yourself. Opportunities don't magically find quiet talent. They find visible clarity. If you cannot explain your value, others will decide it for you, and often incorrectly. This doesn't mean boasting, it means being honest and intentional about what you bring to the table. It means telling your story in a way that aligns who you are with what the world needs. Your story matters, but only if you tell it. Being broke today is not a disadvantage in communication. It might be your training ground. When you have limited resources, words become your leverage. Your ability to persuade, explain, and inspire becomes your currency. Sales, interviews, negotiations, friendships, leadership, every one of these is built on communication, and every one of them rewards those who practice, because communication is not talent. It's a skill, and like any skill, it improves with use. Most people avoid speaking because they fear judgment, but the fear of being misunderstood should be greater than the fear of being seen. Silence may feel safe, but it is expensive. When you don't speak, others speak for you. When you don't ask, you don't receive. When you don't explain, you are overlooked. Great communicators understand something important. People don't remember information. They remember feeling. If you want your message to last, you must connect it to purpose. People don't buy ideas, they buy belief. And belief is transmitted through stories, not statistics, through meaning, not complexity, through sincerity, not perfection. This is why authenticity matters. You don't need to sound impressive, you need to sound real. People can sense when words are empty, but they lean in when words are honest. When you speak from purpose, your voice carries weight, even if it shakes. Communication also means knowing when not to speak. Silence, when used intentionally, creates space for reflection. It shows confidence. It allows others to step forward, and often it says more than words ever could. The goal is not to win conversations. The goal is to build understanding. When understanding exists, conflict becomes productive, differences become creative, and disagreement becomes growth. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more clarity. And clarity comes from those willing to slow down, think deeply, and speak intentionally. So if you want a skill that pays you forever, learn to communicate. Practice explaining ideas simply. Practice listening fully. Practice asking questions that matter. Practice telling your story with purpose. Because when you can connect with people, you are never powerless. When you can inspire belief, you are never invisible. And when you can communicate meaning, you are never broke. No matter what your bank account says, Words create worlds. Choose yours wisely. Discipline is not glamorous. It doesn't announce itself, and it rarely gets applause. Yet, discipline is the quiet force behind every lasting success. Most people wait to feel ready before they act. They wait for motivation, inspiration, or the perfect conditions. But those things are unreliable. They come and go. Discipline, on the other hand, stays. Discipline is choosing what matters most, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. We often think success comes from big moments, major decisions, bold risks, sudden breakthroughs. But success is usually built in the small, unseen choices made every day. The decision to wake up early when no one is watching. The decision to keep going when progress feels invisible. The decision to finish what you started when quitting would be easier. This is why discipline pays you forever. Because it doesn't depend on talent, luck, or circumstances. It depends on commitment. Anyone can work hard when they feel inspired. Discipline is working hard when they don't. Being broke today doesn't mean you lack discipline. It means you haven't been rewarded for it yet, or you haven't fully practiced it. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about alignment. Aligning your daily actions with the future you say you want. Every time you say you want something, you make a promise. Discipline is how you keep it. The truth is, freedom does not come from doing whatever you want. Freedom comes from doing. NG what you must so you can later do what you choose. The people with the most options in life are not the most talented. They are the most consistent. Consistency compounds. Miss one day and nothing changes. Miss many days and everything does. The same is true in the opposite direction. Small, disciplined actions repeated over time create extraordinary results. Discipline builds trust, first with yourself. When you do what you say you will do, you build self-respect. And self-respect changes how you show up in the world. You speak differently. You carry yourself differently. You stop needing external validation because you've proven something to yourself. People notice that. Opportunities follow those who are reliable. Leaders are trusted because they are consistent, not because they are perfect. Discipline is also about saying no. No to distractions. No to shortcuts. No to comfort that costs you your future. Every yes has a price, and discipline helps you pay the right one. We live in a world that celebrates instant results, but anything built quickly can collapse just as fast. Discipline builds slowly, but it builds strong. It turns effort into habit and habit into identity. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Discipline is the system that keeps you moving forward when motivation disappears, and motivation will disappear. There will be days when the work feels heavy, days when doubt is loud, days when quitting feels logical. Discipline is the voice that says, keep going. Not because it's easy, not because it's fun, but because it matters. Discipline does not mean doing everything at once. It means doing the right thing one step at a time. Progress does not require intensity. It requires persistence. Most people underestimate what they can achieve in a year because they overestimate what they can do in a day. Discipline teaches patience. It teaches trust in the process. Being disciplined also means taking responsibility. No excuses, no blaming circumstances. When you own your actions, you reclaim your power. You may not control where you start, but you control how you respond. And response, repeated daily, becomes direction. Discipline doesn't eliminate fear. It teaches you to move forward with it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to act anyway. Discipline makes courage practical. Over time, discipline changes your identity. You stop asking, can I do this? And start saying, this is who I am. And identity is powerful. When behavior aligns with identity, effort decreases and results increase. People who succeed don't rely on willpower alone. Willpower fades. They rely on structure, routines, boundaries, habits that support their purpose. And here's the truth many people avoid. Discipline is a form of self-respect. When you honor your commitments, even the private ones, you send yourself a clear message, you matter. That message changes everything. So if you want a skill that pays you forever, build discipline. Not all at once, not perfectly, but intentionally. Because discipline doesn't change your life overnight, it changes your life over time. And in the end, time rewards those who stayed consistent long after others stopped trying. Problems make most people uncomfortable, they interrupt plans, they create pressure, they expose uncertainty, and so many people avoid them, complain about them, or wait for someone else to fix them. But progress has never come from avoidance. Progress comes from those willing to lean in. Every meaningful advancement in human history began with a problem. Something wasn't working. Something didn't make sense. Something caused pain or inefficiency. And someone chose not to look away. Problem solving is not about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to ask the right questions. It's about curiosity over comfort, responsibility over excuses. This is why problem solving pays you forever. Because problems never disappear. They evolve. And those who can face them calmly and creatively will always be needed. Most people wait for perfect instructions before they act. Problem solvers act with imperfect information. They gather what they can, test ideas, adjust, and keep moving. They understand that clarity comes through action, not before it. Being broke today does not mean you lack value. It often means you haven't yet positioned yourself as someone who solves problems. The moment you do, your value increases. Organizations don't pay for effort, they pay for outcomes, and outcomes are the result of solved problems. Problem solvers don't panic when something goes wrong. They pause, they observe, they ask, what's really happening here? Instead of reacting to symptoms, they search for causes. That mindset alone sets them apart, because problems are rarely what they appear to be. A missed deadline is rarely about time. A conflict is rarely about facts. A failure is rarely about one mistake. Problem solvers know to look deeper. They also know that blaming feels good but solves nothing. Ownership, on the other hand, creates progress. When you take responsibility for a problem, even one you didn't create, you gain influence over the solution. Influence is powerful, and it is earned, not demanded. The best problem solvers don't try to be heroes. They don't seek credit. They seek understanding. They listen to different perspectives because they know complexity requires collaboration. They ask simple questions that reveal complex truths. They challenge assumptions respectfully. They stay focused on the goal, not the ego. Problem solving is not about intelligence alone. It's about mindset. It's about believing that problems are solvable and that your effort matters. That belief changes how you show up. When others freeze, you move. When others complain, you create options. When others give up, you adjust. And people notice. Leaders emerge not because they have titles, but because they provide clarity in moments of confusion. They help others see a path forward when the path is unclear. That is the heart of problem solving. We often think innovation requires brilliance, but more often it requires persistence, the willingness to try again when the first solution fails, and the second, and the third. Problem solvers expect resistance. They expect setbacks. They don't take them personally. They take them seriously. Every failure becomes feedback. Every obstacle becomes information. And over time, that information becomes expertise. This is how ordinary people become indispensable, not by knowing everything, but by being willing to figure things out. Problem solving also means being comfortable with uncertainty. Not everything can be planned. Not every variable can be controlled. But progress still needs to happen. So problem solvers move forward with what they have. They reduce complexity. They break big problems into smaller ones. They focus on next step, not the entire journey. Momentum is built through movement. The world does not reward those who wait for permission to help. It rewards those who step up when help is needed. You don't need authority to solve a problem. You need initiative. Initiative is rare, and rarity creates value. When you consistently solve problems, trust follows. And when trust exists, opportunities appear. People come to you not because you asked, but because you proved you care. Caring is not emotional, it's practical. It shows up as effort, attention, and follow-through. Problem solvers don't promise perfection, they promise progress. And progress over time changes everything. So if you want a skill that pays you forever, become someone who doesn't run from problems. Become someone who stays calm, curious, and committed when things go wrong. Because problems are not obstacles to success. They are the path to it. And those who walk that path willingly will never lack purpose, relevance, or opportunity. Every decision we make is influenced by emotion. Every relationship we build is shaped by it. And every organization that succeeds or fails does so largely because of how well people understand one another. Yet for something so central to human life, emotional intelligence is rarely taught. We are trained to think, to analyze, to calculate, but we are rarely taught how to recognize what we feel, why we feel it, and how those feelings affect the people around us. Emotional intelligence begins with awareness, not of others, but of yourself. Because if you don't understand your own emotions, they will control your behavior. And when emotions control behavior, intention no longer matters. Most conflict is not caused by bad people. It's caused by misunderstood emotions. Fear disguised as anger, insecurity disguised as control, stress disguised as indifference. When you can recognize these patterns, everything changes. People with emotional intelligence pause before they react. They don't deny emotion and they don't suppress it. They acknowledge it. They ask, what am I really feeling and why? That moment of reflection creates choice. And choice is the foundation of leadership. Being broke today does not mean you lack emotional intelligence. In fact, hardship often sharpens it. Struggle forces you to read situations carefully, to notice tone, energy, and intention. When developed intentionally, this awareness becomes a powerful asset. Emotionally intelligent people understand that logic alone does not move people. People move when they feel understood, when they feel safe, when they feel respected. Safety is not created through authority. It's created through empathy. Empathy is not agreement. It is understanding. It's the willingness to see the world through someone else's perspective, even when you don't share it. And that willingness builds trust faster than any credential ever could. Trust is the currency of relationships. Without it, communication fails, collaboration collapses, and progress slows. With it, even difficult conversations become productive. People with emotional intelligence listen beyond words. They hear what is not being said. They notice hesitation, defensiveness, excitement, and fear. They respond not just to information, but to emotion. That response matters. When someone feels dismissed, they disengage. When someone feels attacked, they defend. When someone feels understood, they open up. This is why emotional intelligence pays you forever, because every role you will ever have, leader, teammate, partner, friend, depends on it. Emot. Ionally intelligent people do not seek to win arguments. They seek to preserve relationships. They know that being right is meaningless if trust is lost. They also know how to set boundaries. Emotional intelligence is not about absorbing everyone else's emotions. It's about managing your own while respecting others. It's about responding with clarity, not reacting with impulse. This skill becomes especially powerful in moments of pressure. Stress reveals character under pressure. Emotionally intelligent people remain calm, not because they don't feel stress, but because they know how to manage it. Calm is contagious, so is chaos. When you regulate your emotions, you regulate the environment. Others take cues from you. Your presence becomes stabilizing, and stability builds confidence. Confidence is not loud, it is steady. Emotionally intelligent leaders don't demand loyalty. They inspire it. They create spaces where people feel safe to speak, to fail, and to grow. And people give their best to environments where they feel valued. This doesn't require a title. It requires intention. You can practice emotional intelligence anywhere, in conversations, in disagreements, in moments of frustration. Every interaction is a chance to choose understanding over ego. Ego asks, how do I look? Emotional intelligence asks, how do they feel? That shift in focus transforms outcomes. When feedback is delivered with empathy, it is received as guidance instead of criticism. When boundaries are communicated with respect, they are honored instead of resisted. When decisions are explained with care, they are supported instead of questioned. People don't resist change. They resist being ignored. Emotional intelligence also requires humility, the ability to admit when you're wrong, to apologize sincerely, to repair trust when it's damaged. These moments do not weaken credibility, they strengthen it because authenticity builds connection, and connection builds influence. In a world increasingly driven by technology, emotional intelligence becomes even more valuable. Machines can process data. They cannot build trust. They cannot inspire. They cannot empathize. That will always be human work. So if you want a skill that pays you forever, develop emotional intelligence. Learn to manage your emotions. Learn to understand others. Learn to respond with intention rather than impulse. Because people may forget what you said, they may forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And those feelings are what create loyalty, leadership, and lasting success. As we come to the end, remember this. None of these skills are about quick wins or instant success. They are about who you become, not just what you achieve. Money can be lost, jobs can disappear, titles can be taken away. But the person you build through these skills stays with you for life. Learning how to learn keeps you relevant in a changing world. Communication gives you our ideas a voice and your purpose a direction. Discipline turns intention into action when motivation fades. Problem solving makes you valuable by allowing you to create progress where others see obstacles. And emotional intelligence allows you to lead, connect, and build trust in a world that desperately needs understanding. These skills don't promise an easy journey. They promise a meaningful one. If you are struggling today, that does not mean you are failing. It means you are at the beginning. Every strong foundation starts underground, unseen, unsupported by applause. Growth happens quietly long before results appear publicly. The people who succeed long-term are not the ones who wait for perfect conditions. They're the ones who choose responsibility over excuses, growth over comfort, and purpose over fear. They don't ask, what do I get? They ask, who do I need to become? Because the world doesn't reward potential. It rewards preparation. And preparation is built through daily choices. Small decisions that seem insignificant in the moment, but powerful over time. Choosing to learn instead of complain. Choosing to speak clearly instead of staying silent. Choosing discipline when quitting feels easier. Choosing to solve problems instead of avoiding them. Choosing empathy instead of ego. These choices shape character, and character shapes destiny. You don't need permission to start building these skills. You don't need money, status, or connections. You need calm. It meant you need patience. And you need the courage to begin before you feel ready. The future doesn't belong to the loudest voice or the smartest mind. It belongs to those who are adaptable, trustworthy, resilient, and human. Those who can grow, connect, persist, create, and care. So don't measure your progress only by what you earn. Measure it by what you're learning, how you're communicating, how consistent you're becoming, how many problems you're willing to face, and how well you understand yourself and others. Because when you invest in these skills, you are investing in something far greater than money. You are investing in lasting value, and value, real value, will always find a way to be rewarded.